And this message is for our president. Mr. President, I got a few questions if you'll let me ask him. This situation is delicate, so please answer without checking with your delegates or pandering election rhetoric. Yesterday I turned my TV on and recalled you and Romney in that long race. Every political pundit was wondering, what is our fate? And see, y'all both made a strong case, but right now I think this country might be going the wrong way. Do we got all stayed if we crash? Now we in your hands, Mr. President. This is your task, cause we the people selected you. Did you forget about the decent people that elected you? I read your book on page 63, you quoted King. But did you know the last speech he wrote before he died wasn't about a dream? It was about poverty, greed, and great despair. And he named his sermon, Why America May Go to Hell. We go and bail out corporations with no avail, while working class Americans struggle, nobody cares. Mr. President, I beg your pardon, but I don't wanna hear that circular logic. We ain't in that Oval Office. We can't talk economy until we talk greed, until we talk poverty, and then we talk needs, until we talk love, and then we grab each other's hands, and then we all hug. It's all of us together, no Democrats or Republicans, those are just names to distract us from the fact that we are human beings who want this country restored. Left or right wing, whichever you lean towards, we need reform. We need more than a Supreme Court, more than a corrupt police force that abuses people without remorse. So many lost overseas, we can't keep score. It's like pieces become just intervals between wars. See, these are reasons why we fight for a cause. We fight for the country with the stripes and the stars, not for the legislators that write up the laws. It's for the everyday American. Why I'm writing this song to you. Have you ever had to fight for a cause? Fight for something you knew was right but was wrong? Last night my daughter cried in my arms cause she knew her daddy's trying to find a job, but it's hard. On top of that, my best friend got life for a charge, which is ironic, Mr. Obama. I said my best friend just got life for a charge, which is ironic, cause we both might die with these bars.
Okay, how about that, folks? A great video put together by this guy. I've never really noticed him before. My wife has, and I guess he's on Glenn Beck a lot. But I really never paid attention. His name is Prince EA. And you can see him at Facebook if you just Google that name. I think I also shared it on my Educate, Inspire, and Affect Change Facebook page. So check him out. Pretty inspirational video there. This is the Uncensored Report. This is your host, Frankie Abbruzzino. It is a one-man show. I do everything from the research to the hosting to the website to everything. Everything you see in here is a product of me. You will get some commercials that I bring on. Haven't made anything off them. Would love to make something off them. Haven't made anything off them. But that's basically to give me a break so that I can set up for the next segment, and also to plug my sponsor of my radio show that is on weekends and hopefully soon will be on the weekdays. That's it. So let's go ahead and let's delve in, if you will. I forget which show did that, but it's always funny whenever I see it. Into what's going on, and obviously Ebola takes front and center again. They found out last night that 5-year-old that came back from Guyana, had a fever, was throwing up, that he did not test positive for Ebola, which is a good thing. And then you have the Christie's blinking. You had Cuomo and Christie come out and say, hey, look, we're going to quarantine people that come back from these areas that are highly susceptible to possibly getting the virus, like the aid workers, and we're going to quarantine them for 21 days. Well, Obama, the CDC, they didn't like that, so they came down on them. Cuomo caved, and then later in the day, Christie caved. He yielded to the public pressure of the White House's criticism, and he allowed the nurse who treated Ebola patients in West Africa to emerge from quarantine in Newark and return home to Maine as long as she stays under the honor system and commits to not going out and not communicating with several people. Christie has become a central target for criticism due to this quarantine policy, which many medical professionals called excessive. I don't think it's excessive, and I think I've been pushing for that. I've been advocating for that. I think if you're going to go over into these areas that have a pandemic happening and you're susceptible to getting the virus, I think you should be quarantined. I think it's the responsible thing to do. But just with over a week left to go into the election, Kristen, who chairs the Republican Governors Association, he's down here in Florida. Yesterday it was. I'm not sure if he still is today. And he spent a large amount of the day fending off criticism from this versus out campaigning in Nebraska, Iowa, and here in Florida. Meanwhile, you got this nurse over there, and I'm trying to look for her name real quick. She was quarantined under this policy and under Cuomo's policy that they instituted on Friday. Now she's mulling a lawsuit. Casey Hickox, that's her name. And it's funny, I was just on the internet, and they essentially had some ties to the CDC, and they scrubbed that off her website. I'm not sure why, and I haven't read that story yet. But she traveled to West Africa admirably to help treat patients afflicted with Ebola. She was forcibly kept in a tent in the New York hospital from Friday until Monday. She tested negative for the disease on Saturday. And she was forcibly kept there because she came back and she had the temperature. And so Hickox is going to meet with a civil rights attorney, Norman Siegel, over the next couple of days and see if she wants to pursue legal action over her involuntary quarantine. And look, you don't want quarantine where it's not needed, where the government's proactively putting you in there. But look, I'm not for quarantine, people. But if you're going to go over to this, like I said, if you're going to go over to West Africa and work with these people and you're highly susceptible to getting the virus, we need to take some action, folks. Especially if the doctors are going to be irresponsible. Like the one doctor that went bowling, went out with his friends. The guy's in serious shape. And he should have been more responsible, knowing something was up. Now, the other thing is the soldiers that are coming back from Liberia that have Ebola, they're going to be, or don't have Ebola, have signs or don't have signs, they're going to be quarantined in Italy. It's a small outpost with a nurse's station. It serves as a quarantine facility, according to previous reports. But according to other reports, this facility can't handle a crisis like Ebola if someone does come there. And also the Italian residents, citizens, aren't too happy about it. Basically, they're saying that U.S. soldiers returning from the Liberia, and they won't be under strict quarantine, but they'll be stuck at this Vicenza, Italy outpost, and until 21 days is up. And you got news articles stating that the Italian military police in full hazmat suits will be escorting these soldiers that are arriving in Liberia into this 21-day isolation period. And again, some people are saying, look, I just don't think it can hold up to that. You've had previous issues where we were discussing last week where an aircraft can only hold one at a time, and they can only do up to 4 trips, 4 movements a week at this point. And so, it's the question is still out there. Why have we sent, and why are we continuing to send our soldiers into this Ebola hot zone? All right. One thing I did forget to do is go over the headlines. Sorry. It's where I was getting set up for the show, and I ran into all kinds of technical issues today, and I was just banging my head against the wall. Plus, I was trying to put out a rogue rant, which I just finished up prior to doing the show, so that I could have it for the show. If we look at the headlines, though, and these are basically stories that I have not really looked at yet and have not had a chance to read. We have the InfoWars CDC says, hold on, just skip past that for me. CDC says Ebola droplets can only travel 3 feet, but MIT research shows sneezes can travel up to 20 feet. So essentially what they're communicating now is that, hey, you can get Ebola airborne from a sneeze. Now, I don't know if the sneeze actually goes 3 feet or 20 feet. I don't know if I'm going to believe the CDC Friedman guy because he's done nothing but come out and lie to the people. So I don't have a lot of trust with this guy. Bravo to the sheriff's office over in Ohio. They're refusing to participate in the blood draw checkpoints, which were going to be mandatory if they suspected that you were driving under the influence. I covered that story last month. Ebola. Another Ebola story. They're saying that Ebola can survive on the surface up to 2 months, I believe. I started reading the story and then I got distracted, but it can survive on a surface for up to 2 months. And then we're coming into this colder weather, which it has even higher survival rates. How about this officer over in California? He decided to share new photos that he stole from a citizen's phone and spread them around with his buddies. And then another story I got to read is 15 signs that we are living during a rampant government paranoia, which I'm sure that'll be interesting. Israel soldier suicides are up. Why Israel soldiers are so haunted by what they saw and did in Gaza, which is leading them to committing so many suicides. And that's a story that's up on the Daily Beast, and I'm sure that'll be an interesting read. And then they talk about similar stuff as it before. Quarantine makes pariahs out of Ebola heroes, which they're talking about Casey Cox, how she risked her life to help the suffering in West Africa, but instead of being thanked, she's being isolated upon returning and will remain in Maine. Are we sending the wrong message? I don't think we are. I have to disagree with Russell Sanders there. I'm more concerned about my kids, my family, and their safety versus this person that put herself in that situation. Now, there should be a caveat. These people should know, and they should. Look, if I'm going to West Africa, I'm going to think when I'm coming back, I'm going to be under some kind of quarantine. And for me to get upset and threaten lawsuits is ridiculous. Citizen and Immigration Service employee plead, don't let Obama's massive unilateral amnesty go through. I'm telling you what, we're all fine. Again, I'm a son of an immigrant. My dad was from Italy. I am not for illegal immigration. I think it will destroy the system. I think they're responsible for bringing D68 into the area and many other diseases on the border that we've been hearing about in the news. You haven't been hearing about it in the mainstream media, but we have been hearing about it on alternative. Let's see, on the WND, which is always a good site. They don't have anything. Stone throwing Muslims, bloody Christians in Michigan, and you're starting to see a lot more of that. IRS seizes life savings deposits under $10,000. That's a story I'm actually going to cover because it's a great concern of mine. IntelliHub, what kind of stories do they have out there? They don't really have anything new out there. In the American talks about no God but Allah, and a father is protesting pro-Muslim curriculum at his son's school. That ought to be interesting. Allah is the greatest. I bear witness that there is no God is the headline there. We're going to talk about electronic surveillance next during my rogue rant. I'm going to talk about this too. The Chinese, how the communists are leading the UN agency seeking to control the internet. And that should be a healthy discussion. So we got some good things lined up. Let me go ahead and close this down here. All right, we'll deal with that later. All right, so why don't we take a quick break, go to check out my sponsor's message, and then I'll set it up for the Rogue Rant, and we'll take it from there.
Is your money manager giving you safety and security? Wouldn't you like to make your money work harder for you? Then you should consider joining philsgang.com, where thousands of individual investors have successfully profited.
This year I'm up 60% on my portfolio. Following your system has been fantastic. I've been with you for about a month and a half now, and I'm already up 7%.
I've been in the business for a long time, and you're really one of the best I've ever heard.
Well, I just want to let you know what a great teacher you are.
For over a decade, philsgang.com's Phil Grandy and Donald Cogswell have been teaching, coaching, and investing right along with all Phil's Gang members.
I want to thank Donnie for market wrap. I bought 2,500 shares of AUI and sold it this morning at $820 profit.
Why not join thousands of satisfied Phil's Gang customers today? Go to philsgang.com, philsgang.com, or call 877-600-4264. That's 877-600-4264. Call today.
Okay, and that's my sponsor, philsgang.com. Check them out. Phil is live on the radio at 9 and 3 at philsgang.com and on many nationally syndicated radio stations. He talks about financial and social issues that are impacting our paycheck. He's got this foolproof way to follow the charts to make money in the stock market. philsgang.com. Check them out. Someone else that they're a good thing to do. They sponsor my Saturday show, and we had Dickie Betts on there with the Allman Brothers. He was one of the founding founders of there, Grammy Award winner, one of the best guitarists around. He's doing a benefit this Saturday. I just got my tickets for it, where they're going to benefit Toys for Tots and essentially try to provide a better Christmas for those that just aren't fortunate enough to have one. 100% of the proceeds are going back to them. And, it cracks me up because there was a politician, Cohen, down in Northport, and I posted something about it, and she decided to ruin the thread or ruin the moment and come on and say wife beater. He's a wife beater. And he may be. I don't know. I've learned that when you go public, which I have, you're open up for all kinds of attacks. And I don't really, before I started going public, I used to keep up with it. Now I don't, because I'm like, man, it sucks. They put a lot of misinformation out there. I don't know if it's accurate or not, but it sort of ruined the moment of what he's doing with this thing. He may be a wife beater, and that's an issue you can take up with him. But on this, why would you want to destroy a thread that's out there to help the kids and bring presents to them so that they can enjoy their Thanksgiving, so that they can enjoy their Christmas? All right, we're going to go into my Rogue Rant now, and it's about 5 minutes long, and we're talking about the digital age and some of the concerns I have with it. Let me see. We're going to do... Oh, shoot. I didn't do it right. Here we go. Hey everybody, this is Frankie Abbruzzino with the Rogue Rant, and today I'm discussing the should law-abiding citizens care about electronic surveillance. It's been 1.5 years since the Snowden leaks revealed what we've all long suspected. We are being spied on by the government. We're also being spied on by irresponsible corporations. And by now, it should be clear that a fundamental part of liberty in the digital age is ability to control the data that is being mined. Being mined, folks. And it's about us. Us preventing this data mining. We cannot choose who sees our private communications. We cannot choose the browsing, the spending habits, the personal records. Can we really be said to be free if we can't choose this stuff? Attitude of many is, why should I care? I got nothing to hide. That is what you hear all the time, and it drives me nuts. This is a dangerous thinking for several reasons, folks. The idea that digital liberty is still being defined by policymakers. Future generations will inherit the policies that come from the attitude towards these things. Our silence becomes the acceptance, which becomes approval in the eyes of both the politicians and the next generation of Americans. Imagine the world that would exist if our founding fathers had taken the same approach to the tyranny of their day. Thankfully, they understood that whether or not I have anything to hide, privacy, folks, it's a key part to liberty. And that's why the Fourth Amendment was written. Everyone has something to hide. I don't care who you are. It is why curtains and blinds are on your windows, folks. It is why we use envelopes for our letters. We know, deep down, our private life should remain private. So I'm sick of hearing, why should I care? I don't have anything to hide. Why should we treat our digital privacy any differently? What happens when we need an internet search for an embarrassing medical question? Do you want it advertised all over the world? What about private, intimate text to your spouse? What about a phone call where you argue with your spouse? Do you want that publicized? We do these things in private because they are private. And they ought to stay that way, folks. What can the three-letter government agencies really do to us? You don't think they can do anything? Few people really understand the power these agencies have in our lives. And most of the powerful technological tools they use, such as data mining. Sure, they say, oh, we don't really get anything from that, but they do, folks, and data mining is a big problem. It ties all your purchases together into one profile for data analysis purposes so they can send advertising based on just what you buy. But their data analysis tells them what you're going to buy in the future. They can predict your future actions. How much can the NSA figure out about you, considering that they see every email, every text, all your browser history, your online maps, calendars, and everything? The fact is, they know your habits and the habits of your friends. And they're likely to know your friends will call you tomorrow and ask you to meet for coffee. Do you really want that out there? What happened to our privacy? Perhaps even more frightening is that not only can government agents see emails and documents, and you send a finished product, but they can also see the work as it progresses on, because they can view your web traffic in real time. They can see you drafting documents on Google Docs, online email. And by viewing the process you use to draft a document, they are able to see the backspacing, the rewording, the edits, the phrases you choose not to use. Using psychological profiling techniques, they actually have a window into your mind, folks. President Obama, he assures us nobody's listening to your telephone calls, so we have nothing to be concerned about. But the truth is, programs like PRISM, X-Keyscore, Boundless Informant, and others, the NSA has them, and they're utilizing them to collect information on you. These are political problems requiring some type of political solution. We should be actively pressuring our reps at every level to begin dismantling this apparatus that has been put into use spying on us, taking away our privacy. There are also technological problems requiring technological solutions. Therefore, we should also take personal responsibility for protecting ourselves, folks. Protecting ourselves and our data from both overreaching governments and those nosy corporations. And until they do, they will continue to escalate their programs, as long as we let them. As long as we have that mentality that I have nothing to hide. It's time to stop the NSA. It's time to stop these nosy corporations from spying on us. It's time to take back our freedoms. This has been Frankie with another Rogue Rant. Okay, folks, and that is the Rogue Rant on the digital age. We'll be right back after this brief commercial message. Get some of this great apparel from theroguerant.com or the Uncensored Report or thevintagescoop.com. We have hats, shirts, coffee mugs. They say educate, inspire, and change. Or for my Scoop fans, it'll say the Vintage Scoop, Sarasota Scoop, etc. Help me with this operation so I can continue to get a fresh perspective on the news out to the masses. Thanks a lot, and have a great day. Just go to my website and click on the icon. All right, folks, now we're going to talk a little bit about financing. We're going to jump basically all over the place. We're going to talk about IRS, can they seize your assets? We're going to talk about the QE, how it will impact this inflation. You know how I enjoy talking about inflation. Taking our money. And then we're going to pop over to Amtrak. And the reason, I don't know why I tied Amtrak into this story, because it's about, because you're purchasing tickets with cash and how that might be viewed or deemed as suspicious. So let's go ahead and talk about the stock market first and QE and what will happen. And most of you guys are probably like, Frank, what's QE? We could care less. But it's important, it's imperative, it impacts you significantly. And it's widely expected that the Federal Reserve is going to announce the end of QE this week. Well, they've been saying they were going to. Now, will they? We don't know. We don't know. Will this essentially represent a major turning point in the stock market? And a lot of people fear it will, but a lot of people say no, it will not, because you still got zero rates out there. You see, since 2008, stocks have risen, and they've risen dramatically throughout every stage of QE. But when various phases of QE have ended, stocks have always responded by declining substantially. So they decided to do a gradual decline of QE till it ends this week. So will it happen this time? What we do know is that the performance of the stock market has become completely divorced from economic reality that is out there. In the recent weeks, there have been signs of market turmoil that we haven't seen in years, and we've seen it with the volatility of that market, which is why I tell you, go to philsgang.com. Stay up on what's happening out there. He'll talk about QE. He'll talk about, could QE be the thing that finally pushes the financial markets over its edge? And that's what a lot of people are wondering. After all this time, many Americans still don't understand what QE actually is. But basically, since 2008, the private, not public, not government, Federal Reserve has injected about $3.5 trillion into the financial system. They're printing up money left and right to pay bills that we cannot pay. And of course, the Federal Reserve didn't actually have $3.5 trillion. The Fed created all this money. They printed it up. They pulled it out of thin air and just threw it out there. And they used it to buy government bonds and mortgage-backed securities, creating another bubble. If this sounds like cheating to you, well, I got news for you. It is. It is cheating. If you try to print money, we would be put in prison. We're not allowed to go out and just print money to pay our bills. No, we have to implement austerity at our home to pay the bills. When the Federal Reserve does, it's called economic stimulus. Economic stimulus. But overall, the economy has not been helped much at all with this. Instead, with all the easy money, what it has done is fueled the greatest stock market bubble in history. All these people are making money. Many will lose money. Many of the common folk, the rich guys, aren't going to lose the money there. And this binge, this market binge, has been solely fueled by reckless money printing by the Federal Reserve. And it's not backed up by economic fundamentals in any way, shape, or form, folks. Not at all. And now the QE is ending, and they're wondering, hey, whoa, is the party over? Of course. It was a massive gift. QE was a massive gift given out to those who own stock, to the rich, not the common folk, Roy. So how will the stock market respond now that this monetary heroin addiction is ending? And we'll see. Are they going to go through withdrawals like many heroin addicts? Meanwhile, they're saying there's deflationary pressures out there, deflationary pressures. And they're already starting to take hold around the globe. I don't know if they are here. Around the globe, they're saying it's happening. If the Federal Reserve and the global central banks were printing money like mad, the global economy would have almost certainly entered a deflationary depression by now if they weren't doing that. But all the Federal Reserve and global central banks have done is put off the inevitable and make our long-term problems even worse by printing all this money instead of implementing the much-needed austerity. Instead of fixing the fundamental problems that caused the great financial crisis of 2008, the central banks decided to try paper over problems instead. They flooded the global financial system with easy money. But now our financial system's shakier than ever. I think yesterday, there were 35 European banks that failed the stress test. That's about 10% of the biggest bank in Europe failed the stress test, folks, meaning if a major issue were to pop up today, they would fail and you would lose your money. Forget about FDIC. That thing's almost bankrupt, folks. I know they say it's there. It's going to cover you if you lose money up to X amount. Good luck there. And most people don't realize how vulnerable the financial system truly is. It's essentially a pyramid of debt and credit that could fall apart at any time, folks. And right now, the too big to fail banks account for 42% of all the loans out there. 60% of all banking assets in the United States. And without these banks, we essentially do not have an economy, which is why the banksters have so much say in political matters. But instead of being careful, these banks have taken recklessness to unprecedented heights, even worse than back in 2008. At the moment, 5 of the too big to fail banks each have more than $40 trillion of exposure in derivatives. And most people, most Americans, the common folks, don't know what derivatives are. But when the next great financial crisis strikes, we're going to be hearing a whole lot about them, so you may want to learn about them. These big banks, they've transformed Wall Street into the biggest casino in the history of the planet. And there's no way that we are going to end well. A great collapse is coming, folks. Many people are predicting it out there. And they're saying it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. So are you prepared? And you can't take your money out of the bank. We heard about this one lady. Let me see if it's up here. IRS now sees welcome. Yep. Here, just wanted money. The IRS can now seize your accounts. You got this poor lady. She had her money taken. How could this happen? Who takes money before they prove they've had nothing wrong to do with it? Well, we know the police are doing it. If you get pulled over on the side of the road, you have $3,000. They can assume, they can take your money and say, oh, we're going to check it for any cocaine residue. which is possible. The money has been circulated everywhere. And they're going to keep it. And they take your money. It's civil asset forfeiture. And it's high on their agenda. It's how they keep stealing money from Americans. Hard-earned cash with zero repercussions. They decide unilaterally how much cash a common man is allowed to carry. Now the IRS goes into this poor old lady, Carol Hinders. She dissed out Mexican specialties. It's a cash-only restaurant. Lives blocks away from the bank. Until last year, 2 tax agents knocked on her door and informed her that they had seized her checking. $33,000. They didn't accuse her of any money laundering. They just said, hey, and said the money was seized solely because she had deposited less than $10,000 at any given time, which they view as an attempt to avoid triggering required government reports, the stacking thing. So her money was seized. It was seized under civil asset forfeiture, and she probably will not get that back. That's a lot of money, folks. And what they're doing is using this law that's supposed to be used to catch drug dealers, drug traffickers, racketeers, terrorists, where they can go in and take your money. They're going after people that are really not criminals over this whole stacking thing. The 10,000 loophole line, it's basically a line in the sand. Because, basically, if anything over $10,000, it's got to be reported. For this poor lady, the land of the free. It's not too free for her, is it? It's costing her $33,000 that she'll probably never see again. It's sad. Many of us are running into this situation with money. The grocery store. I talk about it all the time. Inflation. Can't find any inflation? Go to the grocery store. Observations of how non-existent inflation is impacting the lives of ordinary people. The government keeps telling me there's no inflation at 1.5. I'll keep telling them they're wrong. There's been much anguish, consternation, especially among the tenured U.S. economic professors out there. And they believe the Federal Reserve, where, as we revealed last week, at least 113 government workers make over $250,000, and that's excluding their bonuses. They're all confined within cozy little cocoons in America, the 1%ers. And they're out there saying there is no inflation. It's a disappearance, a collapse of inflation. And so they help these ivory tower confined individuals in their holy grail to rediscover that inflation is out there for the rest of America, just not for these professors. Pay them a ton of money, they'll be quiet. They'll give you the numbers you want. And, some observations of how this non-existent inflation is impacting the lives of ordinary people. Those whose net worth does not rise in the same percentage as the Fed's balance sheet. Our paychecks stay the same. In many cases, paychecks are going down, but the food prices keep going up. And I think I said last week it'd be one thing if our checks went up with it, but it's not. They're going down. They're not even staying the same. Many stay the same. Many are going down. But how is it that food inflation is over 20% in some cases? It's crushing normal Americans, yet people are tasked to isolate and remedy precisely such problems are completely oblivious to its impact. The government says it's not out there. Janet Yellen, the number 2 at the Fed's governors, the husband, Nobel Prize-winning economist George Akerlof. They have assets such as stocks and bond funds. To them, it's nothing. They're millionaires. They don't really realize the impact of inflation out there like the common folk, and it's a shame. It's a shame. I don't know how I got on inflation when I'm talking about that whole IRS seizing your assets. But, it drives me crazy that they're increasingly doing this. Taking the money away. Treating common folk like they're racketeers and terrorists just because you have cash, because you don't trust the banks. All over the structuring, smurfing, stacking, whatever it is. Evading reporting requirements because you didn't turn in $10,000. That essentially means that many of us, if you turn in less than $10,000, are committing a crime. because it's against the law. Even if a person hasn't broken the law but decides to make a series of small deposits that are under $10,000, either because it's convenient or simply a matter of privacy, the IRS holds them to be a lawbreaker. And such, their civil assets are subject to forfeiture. Washington Post put out something, and they found that the government never charged property owners with a crime in 81% of the equitable sharing cases, yet they still get the money. The assets are not returned. Law enforcement agencies have been doing this for a while. In 2008, 5,400 police departments and task force spent $2.5 billion in federally forfeited property, folks. Now, there is legislation out there now, hopefully it'll pass, that's trying to stop this from taking place. Good luck. Good luck. And, and then we're talking about cash and how they don't want you to have it and how it's suspicious. And now employees are being told to report travelers on trains if they appear calm or nervous. But if they have cash, it's not if they're calm or nervous, it says if they have cash and doing cash transactions. Purchasing train tickets with cash, exiting a train before or after other passengers, or appearing calm or nervous are all examples of behavior that Amtrak employees are asked to report. They want to know if someone's unusually nervous, unusually calmness, looking around while making phone calls. All things I do. Carry little, no luggage. Purchase tickets with cash. They want to know about you. Such behaviors are ludicrous. It's broad. That virtually anyone's likely to have engaged in at least one of these activities. It may be perfectly innocent going through it, but hey, you're a tourist. You're suspicious. Now, it's just like the TSA. How many tourists has the TSA caught, guys? It's getting really ridiculous out there. We're no longer in the land of the free, folks. No longer in the land of the free. We'll be right back. Hey everybody, this is Frankie, and I'm here today to introduce Longevity. It's a great nutritional supplement to anybody that's eating right or not eating right. I take supplements on a regular basis, and Longevity cannot be beat, especially at some of the great price points. So go to theroguerant.com or the uncensoredreport.com and click on shop. Go down to Longevity, click on it, and you'll be helping out the operations of the station so that we can continue to bring you a fresh perspective on alternative news. Longevity, check it out today. Longevity, getting in shape. Now we're going to talk a little bit about Obamacare, the welfare state. Essentially, we all know there's problems with Obamacare and what it's caused. People are losing their coverage after being promised they wouldn't. Premiums are soaring. Networks are narrowing. Prescriptions are no longer covered. Wait times are expanding. Doctors are leaving the profession. Their website crashes. You can't get in. Even with a whole bunch of newly insured people justified this fiasco, the Democrats have a huge problem. And that's that most of them are signing up for Medicaid. Medicaid, folks. That's essentially what you're getting with this. If you look at the data that's been reported over 2014, enrollment in individual market plans increased by 6 million. Enrollment in private employers' plans increased about 3.7 million. In the states implementing Obamacare Medicaid expansion, enrollment increased to 5.7 million. In states not implementing Obamacare Medicaid expansion, like Florida, they grew by 355,000. What's this tell us? That most people are going with the Medicaid. Now, it's not as if there was no growth at all in the numbers of privately insured, but it pales in comparison to those who simply hopped onto the welfare rolls. And keep in mind that the federal government is only going to cover the state's cost on this for the first 3 years, which is this issue that Florida had. What happens after 3 years? There was no clear plan. After the 3 years, the shares that were picked up by the Fed declines. And not that the taxpayer, you may not notice much difference, but your states are going to feel the pinch. And there's a bigger picture here to consider. The Democrat rationale for government health care has always been something like 47 million people were uninsured. and that this was just an unacceptable state of affairs. And I agree. Everyone needs to be covered. That would be great. They were claiming, hey, the private marketplace just isn't making that happen. If all they were able to do was add $8.5 million to the rolls, and they had to scratch and claw to do that, what does it say about the premise of 47 million people were just dying to get health insurance if they could afford it? Now they could afford it. Where are those other 39 million? It says it was a load of crap, folks. That's what it was, a load of crap. And even the expansion of Medicaid, which is nearly free health insurance, is only able to attract 6 million people. They're still looking for the other 40 million uninsured. Where are they at? Where are they at? So now we all suffer with this disruption. We lose our doctors. We pay higher premiums. We pay higher co-pays. We can't get the prescriptions we wanted. These unintended consequences are massive and disruptive to the people. Is this the change you guys all wanted when you went with Obama? You want your doctor? Keep your doctor. Well, I tell you what, if you want to keep your doctor, you need to change senators. And I'm hoping that a lot of the forecasts that they're predicting with the change of senators are as accurate. Because it's change we need. Right now, Harry Reid will not let votes come up there. And we need change. Because right now, Obamacare is getting so entrenched, it's going to be hard to make a lot of these changes. It's hard to make it better. You know, the administration had unilateral changes in the law that have postponed many painful features of Obamacare until after the election. People don't realize a lot of stuff that's kicking in after the elections. Millions more privately insured Americans will soon see that their policies are going to be canceled. That the individual mandate penalty tax will kick in. The crushing burdens of the new tax on businesses. Medical devices and insurance premiums. They're going to kill our stalled economy. And more independent physicians will have to close their practices because of the new requirements are just too much. Patients will not lose their doctor, but increasingly will be treated according to rigid bureaucratic protocols that are out there, enforced through electronic surveillance, directed towards improving population health and not meeting their needs. They may have a healthcare provider who may or may not have a medical degree. I know a lot of times I'm sitting in and I see a PA. I don't see a medical doctor. I pay the same amount of money. With each passing month, though, Obamacare becomes harder to uproot, folks. The direction of the administration plunge into a century-planned economy becomes harder to reverse. The president's approval rating may be at an all-time low, but he seems willing to defy the wishes of the majority of working Americans. And there is only one hope for change in this agenda, and that's Senate changing over, keeping Congress under the Republicans. One person in our government has the power to thwart the will of the people of the House, and that's Harry Reid. He's squelching every bill that comes out there. 300 bills have been bottled with zero chance of getting a vote because of this guy. So why bother to call a senator if Reid won't let it come to vote? But if we change over, if they change over Republicans, we get a new leadership there. Republican leadership. You know, and now I'm caught in a quagmire. This is more of the governor's race. We have Christie. We have Scott. We have the Libertarian Wiley. Wiley, they won't let him vote. We won't let him in the debates. He's not getting a lot of traction out there. He's pulling about 7% of the vote. Most of it's Republican. So if I vote for him, is that a vote for Christie? Or do I go along Republican lines? I know with Senate, Congress, President, I'm going along Republican lines. There's a lot of independents, a lot of other people I'd like to vote for. But it's more important to ensure that we have the proper representation to get what the people want and to take away this kingly privileges that Obama has been handed and to protect our rights. In this election, whatever the flaws or merits of an individual, party affiliation is going to be much more critical than ever. And once candidates are elected to Congress, don't let them forget who sent them there. That's key, folks. Stay on them. Let them know, I put you here. I can rally the troops and get rid of you too. We'll be right back. 1-800-PET-MEDS. Yes, get your pet essentials, your medicines, your collars, everything you need online. And guess what? You'll be supporting the operations of this great station, the Uncensored Report. So go to my website, click on the icon for 1-800-PET-MEDS, and help us continue the information war that's going on out there. All right, one more conversation I did want to have is just about this UN. Everybody knows my feelings about them. I'm not a fan of the UN. And then you see action like this with this article by Alex Newman where he talks about the Chinese communists are to lead the UN agencies seeking to control the internet. We've all known through this news show about giving up our last bastion of control over the internet, and what will it happen? Already under fire for seeking to usurp new powers to control the internet, the United Nations International Telecommunications Union, we're going to call it IT. They're appointing a Chinese communist to lead the controversial UN agency, and it starts next year. Even more alarming is that bosses claim censorship is in the eye of the beholder. Is it really in the eye of the beholder? Think about it, folks. Censorship is in the eyes of the beholder. Member governments and dictators overwhelmingly selected Hu Jintao from China, where the dictatorship operates among the most Orwellian censorship out there. Especially, we saw that just lately with Hong Kong. And they're in charge of it. They're in charge of controlling the internet. Considering the largely totalitarian-minded member regimes within the UN and the Telecommunication Agency, which has openly sought to seize control of the World Wide Web. This is startling. This is concerning. And it's likely to have some unintended side effects, this decision. It will now become much more difficult for it and its member regimes to advance their plot at global regulation of the internet. So maybe it's a good thing. Western governments have resisted its calls for planetary controls over the web. And with Zhao's appointment, many of the people within just the United States will say, no, it's not going to happen. We can't allow this. And Zhao certainly didn't help the situation when questions were asked about his thoughts on internet and censorship. And he said, I don't have a common interpretation of what censorship means. Some kind of censorship would not be strange in other countries. You see it all the time, these other governments. Turkey, you saw it there just recently. Hong Kong. Syria. You see it all over the place. And in a bizarre twist, Zhao claimed that everybody supports this concept of freedom of speech. Is he kidding me? He expects us to buy this load of crap from him? So right now, the Communist Chinese, they're working overtime in censorship with this whole Hong Kong thing. And if Zhao and the other IT members get their way while Obama administration, who's a big UN fan, unilaterally relinquishes U.S. control over key components of the web's architecture, a global internet regulatory will eventually become a reality, and we can't have that happen. Even members of the U.S. establishment have been pushing for this. Why? Why in God's name? That's the question. Even if the UN agencies and its the UN and its agencies were not founded and led by such suspicious cast of characters, giving governments and especially international bureaucracies the power to control the internet would be a recipe for disaster. Just look at the globalist proposal to tax and regulate the web. The alarms should be sounding off, folks, but they're not. To preserve and advance freedom, the United States should withdraw from the UN. I've been saying this all along. Start defunding the UN. We need action on this, folks. The UN is doing nothing for us except taking all of our money and restricting our freedoms. Enough is enough. Enough is enough, folks. All right, I think that's our show. I got a ton of stuff to do, and as you know, if you watch this, so over the last 5 years, I've been doing this stuff for free, and I got a ton of work that actually pays the bills. Although I'd love to do this, if I were getting paid, I'd do it 2-3 hours a day. I enjoy doing it. Love researching the issues, love talking the issues. I would love taking phone calls and debating the issues. Make sure you catch my show this Saturday. I do have Kathy coming on, Kathy Cantunes. She's a big advocate for 2050, and we're going to discuss the 2050 here. What else am I going to discuss on that? We're going to discuss pop moratoriums, red light cameras, the legality. Yes, I'm bringing that back up. Last time I talked about the revenue boondoggle. A lot of these things are local issues, but I put a national perspective on them to try to keep everyone's attention. But it is a local show here in Sarasota County on the radio. All right, for Frankie, this has been another Uncensored Report. Everybody have a great day. I will see you tomorrow at 11.